All right, good evening and welcome to the Torah studies. This week we're going to be reading two portions again, Achrei and Kedoshim. And the topic we're discussing today is the concept of Ahavat Israel. We speak about it a lot. The important mitzvah of to love your fellow. You love your fellow Jew just like you love yourself. We sing it in the songs, to love your fellow Jew just the same as you. We talk about it a lot, and it is very apropos in the days, excuse me, of the Sfirat HaOmer. The counting of the Omer, we know, is also about talking about the students of Rabbi Akiva that died because of lack of respect to one another. So this is always the focus in this time of year. It's always a focus, but especially in this time of year is the idea of loving, to love your fellow like you love yourself. And that is the mitzvah that is in this week's Torah portion. Ve'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. You should love your fellow like you love yourself. And this is, we discussed this in the past, but we want to talk about it from the angle of Rashi's commentary, answering the question, how is it possible? It's a big statement. Love everyone like you love yourself. What does that mean? How many people do we really love? You can point on your count with the fingers how many people you love. Your spouse, your parents, your children, siblings. But to love every single Jew like you love yourself, is that really a realistic expectation from us? So we're going to discover today the way Rashi explains what is the way of achieving that special mitzvah. So in this two portions, we read about the holiness. We read about the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, what the holiest person, the high priest, would do on that holy day. Would go into the Holy of Holies, the holy place in space. And then we read also, Kedoshim tihiyu, you should be holy. Holiness is about also not just about the time and space, it's about the people, the connection we have with the people should also be a holy matter. It also, of course, talks about the holiness between relationship, but there should be also holy relationships. And then the Torah comes on with this mitzvah of not to take revenge, and you should love your fellow like you love yourself. And that is what we are going to focus on. So let's see inside. The question we posed, what does love your neighbor mean? Can you possibly, truly love your neighbor, love your fellow Jew? It seems impossible. So, let's see what the Torah says. Don't take revenge. Don't take revenge from or bear a grudge against the member of your people. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am God. What is reyacha? Your neighbor, your friend. And of course, as we know, we see in the commentaries what it explains. We're talking to your fellow Jew. Now, this seems to be a very simple, straightforward commandment. Don't take revenge, don't keep a grudge, and love your fellow like you love yourself. But apparently, when we look a little deeper, we find that it's not so simple. We're starting with the commentary that we discussed lately, the famous commentator Rashi. And Rashi says as follows: Ve'ahavta l'reyacha kamocha amar Rabbi Akiva ze klal gadol b'Torah. Love your neighbor as yourself, Rabbi Akiva says. This is a great principle of the Torah. So Rabbi Akiva is telling us it's a great principle in the Torah. What exactly does it mean? And why does Rashi need to tell us what Rabbi Akiva says, that it's a great principle in the Torah? What's not understood, as we mentioned many times during these lessons, we know that Rashi only explains something which is not understood in the simple meaning. Here, what's not understood here? Why does he have to mention what Rabbi Akiva says? It's a great principle in the Torah. And the Sifsei Chachamim, one of the commentators on Rashi, says as follows. He says, as if to say that all the Torah is included in this mitzvah. This is similar to Hillel's statement, do not do to others what you would not want to do to yourself, done to yourself. So Hillel is a commentator that was way before Rabbi Akiva, and he made that statement. He says, do not do to others what you don't want it done to yourself. So in other words, the mitzvah of Ahavat Israel, love your fellow Jew, it's not just an important mitzvah, it is a fundamental mitzvah. And that fundamental mitzvah equals to all the entire Torah. There's in the Talmud brings the story what Rabbi Akiva, what Hillel said. We know the famous story with person that wanted to convert. As we read here, there was an incident involving one Gentile who came before Shammai and said, convert me on condition that you teach me the entire Torah while standing on one foot. Shammai pushed him away with a builder's cubit in his hand. Then the same Gentile came before Hillel, and Hillel converted him and taught that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That is the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and study. Zil Gemara. So this is what we find what Hillel said. So basically we have two statements. We have a statement what Rashi quotes from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said that love your fellow Jew is a klal gadol b'Torah, a very important principle in the Torah, a big principle in the Torah. And then we have what Hillel said, do not do what you don't want to be done to you. That is the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and study. It seems like the Sifsei Chachamim says that these two are one and the same. And the questions we have here is, why does Rashi bring that? Why is that important for us to understand the simple understanding in the Torah? That's number one. What's difficult in the verse that Rabbi Akiva comes to clarify? The teaching of Rabbi Akiva. And another question, as you remember many times we mentioned, that when Rashi teaches us something, usually he does not quote, he does not mention the name of the sage who said the statement. If he does, it is only because knowing the sage who said it will help us understand the meaning of the verse. So here we need to understand two things. Why is Rashi bringing us an explanation in the first place? And number two, why does he bring the name of Rabbi Akiva? What is it? How does it help me understand the whole situation? So the key to understand this Rashi is that this statement of Rashi comes after a whole list what the Torah tells us about laws that pertain to interpersonal connection, interpersonal laws that apply between people. The Torah gives us a whole list of things in the portion about what is things that we should do or not do when it comes to our fellow Jew. So here's a few verses that we see. Again, those are mitzvahs that the Torah commands us what to do and what not to do when it comes to your fellow Jew. So in verse 9, the Torah says, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not fully reap the corner of the field, nor shall you gather the gleaning of your harvest. That is a mitzvah. And as it goes on in verse 10, you shall not glean your vineyards, and the fallen grapes of your vineyards you shall not gather. For the poor and the proselyte you shall leave them. I am God. So again, that's a mitzvah of helping the poor people. The poor people, the stranger, the one who comes to you. Then there is another mitzvah. Verse 11. You shall not steal. You shall not deny a rightful claim. And each one of you shall not lie to each other. And again, laws that pertain to interpersonal relations between people, how to act and how to behave. Verse 12, you shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am God. Again, this is swearing against someone else falsely. 13, you shall not withhold the wages of your fellow. And you shall not rob. It shall not remain overnight the wage of a day laborer, keeping it in your possession until morning. If you made up a time to pay your employee, you gotta pay him on time. 14, you shall not curse a deaf person, and before a blind person you shall not place a stumbling block. You shall fear your God, I am God. And again, 15, you shall not commit injustice in judgment. You shall not favor a poor person. You shall not show honor to a powerful person. With righteousness shall you judge your fellow. So this, of course, is a law that pertain more to the judges, how they are supposed to act towards their fellow. Then he goes on in 16. Do not be a talebearer among your people. You shall not stand idly when the life of your fellow is in danger. I am God. Lota modal dam reyecha. You see someone in danger, you got to save him. And finally, in 17, the Torah tells us, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall certainly rebuke your friend, but you shall not bear a sin on his account. And here's a very big question. Why do we need all of these laws? If the Torah tells us, "Ve'ahavta l'reyacha kamacha," love your fellow like you love yourself, isn't that included? All of these mitzvahs that we just mentioned? You have the mitzvah, any mitzvah. If you love your fellow, you're not going to cheat him, you're not going to rob him, you're going to help him if he's poor. All of these mitzvahs are included in that mitzvah. So why is this important? Why is this important? Why do we have that mitzvah of ve'ahavta l'reyacha kamocha? And this is what Rashi comes, that's what bothers Rashi. And that is what he comes to explain to us, and he's telling us, Ze klal gadol b'Torah, love your fellows yourself. It's not just a mitzvah, it's not just another mitzvah. This is an important principle, a big principle in the Torah. So in other words, in the Torah we find sometimes that the Torah gives us a basic principle, and then we have the details of how this principle is practiced. One of the examples to this rule is the laws of Shabbat. On Shabbos, what is we have, if you go into books of the laws of Shabbat, we have hundreds and hundreds of laws, what we cannot do, what we should do, what we cannot do. So many laws, so many details. But it all evolves around one principle. What is the principle? On Shabbos, we have a mitzvah to rest. There is the concept of resting. Then the details is what does it mean resting? It is Hashem rested on that day, and we are supposed to rest on that day. It is us connecting to Hashem through this principle of resting. And again, today is not the time when we're going to, all the details why this is allowed, this is not allowed. For me, resting is taking my car and taking a ride. Why is this not? It's not for today. But in general, this is what we know about this idea of when you have a principle and you learn from all the details, from the principle. So in the Torah, in the Ten Commandments, the Torah tells us about Shabbos. Remember the day, the Shabbos day, to keep it holy. And then it goes on to say what it is. 6 days you should labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat to Hashem. On it you should not do any work. You, your son, your daughter, your maidservant, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger that is within your gates. And explains why. For in 6 days God made heaven and earth, and the sea and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore God blessed the Shabbos day and made it holy. So if you have to summarize, what is Shabbos in one word? It's rest. And the same thing is the idea with all of the interpersonal mitzvahs. All of the mitzvahs that pertain to a fellow Jew. What is the principle? Is the love for a fellow Jew. You have that love, and from this you derive all of the other mitzvahs. Now, the question is, why do we need that principle? What's wrong? What's wrong if we just say, God gives us commandments, tells us what to do, what not to do, not to hurt someone. Like, we have all of these mitzvahs listed in the Torah. But then the Torah gives us also the principle of ve'ahavta l'reacha kamaycha. Love your fellow like you love yourself. How does having that principle help us in fulfilling the other mitzvahs that are interpersonal mitzvahs? So to understand this, we need to dig a little deeper into the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew. How is it possible? Is it really, that's the question we began in the beginning? How is it possible? How can we really love a fellow like we love ourselves? I mean, if the Torah would tell us there's things we should do, we should not do, I can understand. I mean, but to love someone is a commandment. To love someone is a feeling. How can you command someone to feel or not to feel? If you can command that way, it will be very easy to solve all the marriage problems. I fell out of love. Okay, I command you, start loving him. And end of story. Obviously, it doesn't work that way. So, of course, we discussed this many times. And there are commentators that talk about it. And they generally take two approaches to this mitzvah. One approach is that the Torah doesn't really command us. When the Torah tells us, it doesn't really mean that you should actually feel love to your fellow like you love yourself. They said it's impossible. And they say that the approach is that you have to act. You have to act kindly to others. That may be difficult, but it's doable. So let's inside what some of the commentators speak about this mitzvah. So going back, we answered the Rashi. Rashi brings Rabbi Akiva's teaching to clarify why there are so many mitzvahs regarding interpersonal relationships. These mitzvahs are not redundant at all. Rather, they are practical application of the grand Torah principle of Ahavas Yisrael. That's what that's what Rashi says. It's a principle which teaches us this. And we asked, why does the Torah frame us in this? So the Nachmanides says indeed what we said, that this is not doable. To really love someone like you love yourself is not simple. It's not doable. That's the Nachmanides. It says this is an expression by way of overstatement. For a human heart is not able to accept a command to love one's neighbor as oneself. And that is why, as I said before, there is different approaches, different commentators, that they take two approaches. How can the Torah command in like love yourself? So one approach is here by Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg. He says, Naksa v'Kabbalah. He lived in the 17th century. And he says what the verse means is this: whatever goodness and kindness you think you deserve from those who love you, do that to others. That's one approach. The other approach is that it's not just do what action to others, but you should also have the attitude. Change the attitude. Try to think of doing good to other people, not just the action. So these are the two approaches. First approach, act of love. When the Torah tells us, the Torah asks us to perform acts of love and treat others the way we would want to be treated. The second approach is not just an act of love, but also their attitude. The Torah asks us to maintain a mindset of goodwill and genuine concern for the well-being of others. And that is something we see in the Nachmanides. It says the Torah's commandment means that one is to love another in all matters as one loves all good for themselves. So whatever you wish for yourself, wish for others. And again, that's much more difficult than just doing. I mean, think, for example, you have a neighbor that you cannot stand. And then one day the neighbor goes through a difficult time, somebody passed away, God forbid. And you decide, I can't stand this neighbor, but I got to do something for him anyway. So I'm going to bake a cake. I'm going to give him a cake and live at his door. Did you fulfill the mitzvah of Ahavat Israel? Love your fellow as yourself? According to the first approach, you did. You fulfilled it. You acted to the neighbor in a kind way. But according to the second approach, you didn't fulfill it. You acted, but you still can't stand them, and it's not that you really wish all the good for the person. That is something you have to work on yourself to make sure that you change the attitude. Similar things we said, Evan Ezra says. He says it means that you should love whatever is good for your friend as you do for yourself. שיאהב הטוב לחברו כאשר יאהב לנפשו. So these two approaches explain how it's doable, okay? How it's doable to fulfill the mitzvah of ואהבת לרעך כמוך, to love your fellow. Either doing it or going further and really changing the attitude and wishing good for the other people. But still, it does not explain the simple understanding of what the Torah tells us. The simple reading of the verse is ve'ahavta, you should love. That means you should really have a feeling to the other people. And here is where Rashi comes, and as the Rebbe explains it, Rashi shines the light on this verse. And he tells us as follows. Rashi tells us, Rabbi Akiva said that this is a big principle in the Torah. And as we said, we have the principle, and this principle leads to details. There's many, many mitzvahs that you should do, but don't forget that this all comes from the principle. The principle that we should love our fellow Jew. How is that principle helping us in developing that mitzvah? The feeling of love of a fellow Jew is number one. When you get involved in doing things, when you're going to act with all of the details what the Torah tells us, even when it's difficult, and you act again and again and again towards other person, knowing that this comes from this principle, it will help you to develop that principle in you. What does that mean? The Torah expects us to attain a genuine, heartfelt love for one fellow Jew, for one's fellow Jew. This is achieved through action. By actively engaging in all these interpersonal mitzvahs, a person will attain true love. When you act in this mitzvah, you attain true love. And why is that? Number one, when you train and you're doing Hashem's commandment, it helps you and leads and refines your heart. But it's also when you're doing something because God commanded us, you may be doing the right thing, but every time you do it, says, okay, I got to fight with myself, and I did it. But if this is all part of that principle, when you think about the principle that we are supposed to love one another, to have true love, like yourself. What does that mean? Like family. When you think about the fact that we are family, then each act changes. It's not just fulfilling what God commanded us. It is giving us a deeper understanding that we do it. Why? Because this is my fellow Jew, my brother. As the Rebbe says, Rashi answers these questions with his explanation that love another as yourself is a general principle that encompasses many details. Since it is a general principle, it's understood that its practical fulfillment happens through observing the individual details. And that starts with the commandment listed immediately before it. Don't be a gossip monger. Don't hate your fellow. Don't take revenge. And even before that, with the commandments like don't steal. So again, all of these, when you fulfill them, you're acting on those details. And each time you act on these mitzvah, you think about the principle. Imagine you have a juicy gossip you want to talk about your neighbor. And then you say, wait a second, I can't do it. I can't do it. Hashem says don't. So you don't do it. And you fulfill the mitzvah by not doing it. But if you think about it a little differently, you say, wait a second, why can't I do it? Why does the Torah tell me not to do it? Because I have to love him like myself. It's really why. What does it mean? He's my brother. You're not going to want to have a rumor going around your brother. When you have that principle, the whole attitude changes. So it works both ways. It is by fulfilling the details of the mitzvahs, it affects your feelings. It develops your feeling towards every time you stop. When you want to do something, you see somebody in need, and you say, "Wait a second, I don't have strength. I don't want to deal with this." And then you stop and say, "Wait a second. The Torah tells me, he's my brother. I gotta help him." So every time you do something like this, it strengthens the feeling. Every time you act in that way, it strengthens your feelings. But that is also with the point that you have the principle in mind. If you just act again and again every time because God commanded you without the principle, it doesn't necessarily make it easier, and it can get more difficult with time. So many things, leave me alone. But every time when you act that way and you think about the principle of Ahavat Israel, he's my fellow Jew, he's my brother, that only enhances that feeling of the brotherhood, the fellowship, that we are part, we're not just a nation, we are family. And the same thing is true with Shabbat, the idea of keeping Shabbos. When you have a good Jew following God's commandments and saying every time I keep Shabbat, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Yes, you're fulfilling the mitzvah, but it gets difficult if you think about it. But if you have that principle, what Hashem commanded us, says Hashem rested on that day. On this day, I need to be elevated. I need to rest. And what does it mean to rest? The way the Torah describes what is rest. So every time you do this, you connect with Hashem and you're resting. You have this principle of resting like Hashem rested. You're elevated like Hashem is elevated on that day. As the Kabbalah talks about it a lot. So again, the principle helps the details and the details help the principle. So observing the individual mitzvahs brings one to Ahavat Israel, and Ahavat Israel gives each mitzvah a deeper meaning and purpose. Now, finally, we'll get to the question we asked. So we understand now why Rashi says this is a big principle. Because the whole idea of fulfilling these mitzvahs, the interpersonal mitzvahs, when we understand this is a big principle in the Torah, we understand that fulfilling that, we are able actually to lead to get the feeling of love to a fellow Jew as much as possible. And why does Rashi mention the name Rabbi Akiva? It is because Rabbi Akiva told us about this concept, that a Jew is not just a servant of God, a Jew is a child of God. Banim atem, we are children of Hashem. And if we are children of Hashem, that means we are brothers, we are family. And this brings a very interesting story between Turnusrupus of Russia, that he said to Rabbi Akiva, and he asked Rabbi Akiva a question, why do you give people tzedakah, charity? Why do you feed the poor? Don't you go against God's will by feeding the poor? God made him poor, and you're going against God's will and giving him the money. So that's what he said to Rabbi Akiva. And he told him, I will illustrate this to you with a parable. To what is this matter comparable? It is comparable to a king of flesh and blood who was angry with his slave and put him in prison and ordered that he should not be fed or given to drink. Then one person went ahead and fed him and gave him something to drink. If the king heard about this, would he not be angry with that person? What did Rabbi Akiva answer? Rabbi Akiva said to Turnusrupus, I will illustrate the opposite to you with a different parable. To what is this matter comparable? To a king of flesh and blood who was angry with his son and put him in prison and ordered that he should not be fed and given to drink. Then one person went ahead and fed him and gave him a drink. If the king heard about this, once his anger abated, would he not react by sending that person a gift? Consider that we are called children. As it is written, you are children of God. Banim atem Hashem Elokechem. That's what Rabbi Akiva said. That is the change. That is the difference. That is why Rashi mentions Rabbi Akiva said it. Because Rabbi Akiva viewed every Jew as a child of God. And as the Mishnah says in the Ethics of the Fathers, in Avot, Rabbi Akiva says the Jewish people are God's beloved children. This love is amplified by the fact that God publicized our relationship. As the verse states, you are children of the Lord your God. So we are not just a people, we are family. So Rashi mentions Rabbi Akiva by name to further show us how to cultivate Ahavat Israel. Rabbi Akiva saw all Jews as God's children, teaching us to view every Jew as family. This is the key to achieving true love and unity. So it gives us a whole new understanding in what this Ahavat Israel, how do we love our fellow? How do we achieve that love? Again, through the practice on a daily basis, working on ourselves every time we have an opportunity to do something good, even if we don't want to do it, we do it, but doing it knowing the principle that we are brothers, and this is the principle of love your fellow Jew. I want to finish with a story that I read that happened in Israel. There was a family, the Schlesinger family, from a place called Alon Shavut. And this is in northern Israel. They had a 28-year-old son. His name was Elisha. And he was driving, on a Friday, was driving up to join his family for Shabbat. And he drives, I think it was Kvish 6, Route 6. And was driving to whatever, he needed to fill up the gas. Maybe it wasn't Kvish 6, but in any case. And finally, he went a few stops and he finally decided to stop to fill up his gas. He looks on his watch. It's 3 hours before Shabbos. And he had, we figured he has an hour still left to drive. And so he stopped at the gas station. He comes to the gas station and he sees a young lady there, standing there, looking very upset. So he asked her what's going on. She said that she's on her way home for Shabbos. Her home is a place, Alei Zahav, in the Shomron. She's still 3 hours to drive. And by mistake, she filled up her car with diesel gasoline instead of regular gasoline. And the car wouldn't start. There was no mechanic there to be able to, obviously, to change it. You need to. And he's like, what do we do now? It's 3 hours drive to her place. It's 1 hour to drive to my place. I cannot do both. And then he decided to do something. He takes out his keys and he hands it over to the lady. He says, take my car. Drive it home. You're going to make it for Shabbos. And give you my phone number. After Shabbos, you give me back the car. She couldn't believe it. Stranger on the road gives her a car. He takes out his stuff. They put in their car. She puts her stuff in his car. And she drives off, thanking him. Couldn't believe, like an angel. He calls up his father. Says, Father, could you come pick me up? And it was enough time. And they came home. It was really unbelievable. After Shabbos, the lady comes over with a car. And obviously the family knew about what happened. They all were amazed. And she says to the mother, I can't believe what a son you have. You raised such a son. How can I repay him? What can I do for him? And the mother says, there's not much you can do, but he says he's 28 years old and he's looking for a shidduch. He needs to get married. And this lady, she posted a story on Facebook. And to make a long story short, this young man is now married with one of the people that heard that story, and they made a shidduch. So Hashem works in mysterious ways, obviously. To get him a shidduch, it's 20 years old, to get married through that lady breaking down her car. But think about the love of Ahavat Israel. Where else would you hear about a stranger giving his car away to a stranger, let him drive off for Shabbos and expecting they should bring back the car, and him going looking for a ride for himself? That's true Ahavat Israel. So this is it. Be'ezrat Hashem, by doing this, Ahavat Israel, increasing love between us. As the Rebbe said many times, that it says the Beis Hamikdash, the second temple, was destroyed due to lack of basis hatred, lack of love. And the way to fix it is to increase in love. And here the Rebbe's teachings also is guiding us and to be able to understand and appreciate what does it mean to love and how we can achieve a real, true love to our fellows. It's not easy, but it's doable, and that is the way we work on it. So thank you all for joining.